Welcome to my dad's car. Enjoy!
Welcome to My Dad's Car, a podcast discussing our personal relationship with automotive nostalgia. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be about your dad's car. It can be your mum's, your grand's, your parents', guardians, or even a neighbour's. If it made an impression, let's talk about it. Hello.
Hello.
You well?
Yeah, not too bad. Giving the Cup its first test drive.
Very nice.
Hasn't leaked or anything like that.
Oh yeah, we should have a leaky cup, really.
Yeah. We could supply it with a drip tray, couldn't we, or something like that?
I think they call them saucers.
Yeah. Very good.
How you doing, Ed? I think he might be muted. He's concentrating. We'll put subtitles on this podcast.
We'll have to do it in sign, yeah. For the benefit of the tape, Ed is pointing at the screen.
With one. I think it's charades. Podcast charades.
First word. Sounds like compute. Mute. I think I have to drink it left-handed, Andy, to show the My Dad's Car logo. So
I've ordered the wrong type.
Yeah, the left-handers, mate.
Are you on your phone, Ed, or on computer on your phone? And you've not got an unmute option. Do you want to log out and log back?
Have you got a hammer?
Have you got a hammer?
He's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. Well, it's good to catch up with Ed, wasn't it?
Yeah. Great. Fascinating chat.
You can't stop him, can you? Once he gets away, he's ever so chatty.
Hey.
Yay.
Hopefully you guys aren't recording yet.
Oh, we are, but we won't. Yeah, we won't use all of it. I'll go through and
You'll just edit me out of the chat.
yeah, we've learnt basically you press record and record everything, because otherwise what happens is we stop and then we have a great discussion about something.
Yeah.
And then we're like, I should have recorded that.
How are you guys? You right?
Good, yeah.
Yes, we're good, thank you. So yeah, Ed, meet Jon, Ed.
You're right, Ed. Nice to meet you.
Hey, John. How you doing, buddy? And you?
For the benefit of the tape, I met Ed through Porsches, and yeah, you come along to some of the Porsche stuff I've done. Ed runs a business called The Raceworks, which sells motorsport apparel and stuff like that. So I've had the benefit of some rather lovely socks from their range, and also recently a Porsche bag. Actually, going back to an episode the other day, I bought some branded Porsche merchandise.
Very nice.
Which may or may not incur ridicule from you, Jon.
Very good. Yeah, I look forward to seeing that.
So yeah, let's we'll jump in, Ed. You've kindly sent me a message the other day. You've been listening to the podcast, and you were like, "Oh, this makes me remember my dad's cars and stuff." So
Yeah.
exactly why we're doing this. So I suppose let's start with what your earliest car memory is.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because until something like this comes along, I think you just assume that you're the only one that's really nostalgic. If you're into cars, then I think it's just a prerequisite that you have to kind of remember the things that your dad had, because your dad was everyone's dad's your hero, aren't they? You know, when you're growing up. And I think until this podcast came along, I just thought maybe I'm the only one that sort of hankers after the nostalgia of memories of my dad and his cars. And then this comes along and you suddenly think, okay, there's catharsis in knowing that everyone else has fond memories. My first memory of my dad's cars was probably not one of his first, but it was a Ford Granada.
Okay.
And I still remember all of the number plates from his cars, which is a bit weird. But it was RGY 854X, and the RGY, he called it Reggie.
Yeah.
Which also stemmed this whole line of me now naming all of my cars.
Okay.
So, because I think I'm always of the belief that, and I think Clarkson said it, that, you know, if you get it, you get it. Cars aren't just forms of transport. They have personalities, and you make memories in them, and they become a part of your family.
Yeah.
And I have been known to shed a tear when I've sold certain cars that have, you know, been close to me, that I've had lots of memories and adventures in. But Reggie, which was a dark kind of mushroom grey old X Reg Ford Granada 2.8 injection gear estate.
Nice.
And I can even remember how it smelt, so much so that I actually tracked down about a year ago one of the faux orange traffic light air fresheners for my car, because my dad used to have them in his. They had the little pin that came with them.
Yeah.
Had like a glass-looking dome on the front, and you'd pierce the back.
It was a taxi driver special, wasn't it, that air freshener? They all had them at the time.
That air freshener would have been readily available in the 80s in any petrol station you would pass for probably 50 pence, and I paid 28 quid for it. It took me two years, and I believe I did very well, because I think they actually trade hands for more like double that now.
Wow.
But the interesting thing is, I've got a 1972 Mercedes that it sits hanging off the rearview mirror, and people of a certain age would always comment initially on the car and then immediately on the air freshener, and you get this, it garners the same response of, oh my God, my dad had one of those when I was growing up. Have you pierced the back of it yet? And I haven't. It's still intact. But if you give it a hard enough sniff, you can smell what it will smell like when it obviously gets pierced. And it just immediately takes me back to being probably 6 or 7 years old, sitting in the back of my dad's Ford Granada, probably asking, are we nearly there yet?
Were you an only child, Ed, or you got siblings? Or
my brother's 3 years older than me, but he lives in Asia. I see him once or twice a year.
Okay.
But he's not into cars at all. And I can't remember never not being into cars.
Was your dad into cars?
Yeah, he was, yeah. So Reggie, I remember being enormous to a 6-year-old, because they're big anyway, those Granadas.
Yeah.
Smelling of the faux orange traffic light fresheners, and him having an enormous CB aerial on the roof. That was on a bracket that you used to have to lift and click it up, and then it would drop down vertically or backwards, I think. So when you took it into the car wash, it wasn't swinging around so it had like an adapter that would fold down. I just remember CBs and air fresheners. I mean, arguably the coolest childhood for anyone in the 80s, probably, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Ford Granada CB and traffic light air fresheners, but yeah.
Did he let you have a go on the old CB, chatting to people?
I think so, probably. It's funny how those things kind of carry forward. He passed away in 1997, so I'd have been 19.
Yeah. And
years later, one of my companies is named after his CB handle.
Oh, nice.
Just as a kind of a nod to a memory, I think. You know, it's his CB handle was Overlander. So I've got a company called Overlander. It's funny, isn't it? You kind of carry these things forward. But my brother was never into his cars. I was just always obsessed with them from little models. I've still got lots of the toy cars, the little 143 or 118 scale cars that I'd have had when I was little. I've still got a lot of them because I could never bear to part with them. Is that a bit weird, or is that normal? Do we all do that?
Did you play with them or keep them in the boxes?
No, I wish I had, but they're all battle worn.
Yeah.
No, I've still kept all of mine, or I think my brother's got them in the loft. So, yeah, I don't think you're on your own with that one, Ed. I think it's fairly normal.
I do shudder when I look at a lot of them when I've tinted the rear lights with a permanent marker, for example.
Yeah.
They've all got limo black windows from where I've managed.
Yeah, I remember taking a tin of red Hummel paint to a police Range Rover once, which in hindsight I probably shouldn't have done it, but yeah.
Especially when the copper was sat in it.
And that's how it happened, officer.
I did a 6 stretch for that.
9 to 15 years old.
Yeah.
Dark memories. So no, Mike, yeah, definitely the Granada. I think he had 2 Cortinas prior to that. Then I think he went on to a Datsun Stanza. Stanley, it was called. And that PGF 772Y.
Obviously, the X and the Y very close together. Would he get a new car every year, or
no? He used to keep them for long periods of time. I think the Granada would have been with us for quite a long time because Stanley would have been not old, but certainly sort of pre-owned by the time he got into that, because he bought that when he lost his job and he was out of work for, I think, about 8 months over a summer where he was gardening and doing groundwork in our neighbour when we were little. Her auntie lived in a very, very big house in the village where we grew up, and he was doing groundwork and gardening and looking after the pool and things there. So I remember spending summers going out in Stanley, going down to that house and swimming in the pool and playing tennis. And it's funny, isn't it? Because those were probably some of my happiest memories as a child. And yet it was probably the hardest time for my dad because he was out of work.
Yeah, true.
It's funny, isn't it? When you're young, you don't pick up on those sorts of things at all. So I talked to my mum about it now, and she says, well, you realise that your dad was not working. He was doing work for Auntie Brenda, but desperately trying to find security and getting another proper job. And it was in the village, and it was probably only maybe 2 or 3 miles away from where we lived. But going out on an adventure in a car, having to drive somewhere, it just felt like the other side of the world. It's funny when you're small, isn't it? But I just remember. So my memories of my dad are largely all around cars and bikes and, various things like that. So I've got a real fondness. And he held on to cars for long periods of time. So that he had a Renault Laguna when he went to work for a French pharmaceuticals company.
Okay.
So they would have bequeathed him a Renault or a Peugeot or something. So I remember sitting on the sofa and going through the Laguna brochure whilst he picked colours and what colour interior he was going to have and whether he would go for a manual or an auto. And then he had that car up till when he passed away in 97. So, and that would have been, I think, a 95. That was an N.
That was a touring car special, wasn't it, that Laguna?
Yeah.
I thought they looked quite smart, actually.
Yeah.
Quite a nice bit of styling on them.
Yeah, it was a really cool car. It was green, it had grey, it was an auto. It was the first time I'd ever sort of had experience of auto. I think actually probably Reggie was auto in hindsight. Big Granadas weren't often manuals, I don't think.
No.
But it was it just felt so modern. Getting out of a 19, what would Y be? PGF 772Y. That'd be what, 82, 83?
Yeah.
Getting out of a Datsun Stanza and into a 1995 Renault Laguna was night and day.
Yeah.
And it was really modern, and it had a CD player and all kinds of. It's funny, isn't it? And I look at them now because you don't see them around really.
No.
That sort of even mid 90s cars. I think they're so few and far between. But I occasionally see one on the motorway or something, and they just look so old now.
Yeah.
And you do think that when things come out, when even in like modern iterations of cars, when they come out now, you look at them and think, that's never going to date. And then they bring the new version of it out, and suddenly the other one looks really old. It's funny how things progress at such pace now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting now because I'm definitely more interested in old stuff than new stuff. Than anything new doesn't really interest me in any way at all, really. I just like the old stuff. Anything kind of 70s, 80s, early 90s, anything pre-airbag, really.
Anything with a bit of peril.
Yeah, anything pre-airbag from that kind of pre-airbag era, I'm all over. I love it.
Terrible news for the rest of the family, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I know what you mean, though. I think it's probably that thing, isn't it, of character. Like the older stuff does have the character, where the modern stuff, you just can't sort of connect with it in the same way, can you? I don't think.
You're absolutely bang on. I think it's just, they had so much more character and much more soul to it. And I look at a lot of the new stuff and I can't identify what stuff is. If I'm sat on the motorway, I don't know what things are nowadays.
Yeah.
I remember when I was little, and it's weird the things that stay with you. My mum had a Nissan Micra, and my next door neighbour had a Mark II Ford Fiesta.
Okay.
And even now, if I hear a Ford Fiesta, if you happen to stumble upon a Mark II Ford Fiesta in a car park somewhere, and as you walk past it starting, I instantly know that it's a Mark II Ford Fiesta. I can tell you the sound that a Mini Metro's door will make when it closes. My mum's Nissan Micra, I could tell you exactly how that sounds. It's these things just don't go. They're always there. I remember being in, I think it was at Halford's car park or something, probably 6 months ago, and a Mini Metro going past, and immediately before even looking around, said to my wife, "Mini Metro." Nothing.
Quite a whiny noise, that one.
Like car nostalgia correct.
Yeah.
We were talking about this with Adam, weren't we? Which will come out in a few days. But he was saying that he wanted to go on You Bet when he was a kid because he thought he could tell all the cars starting up.
Yeah.
And we kind of had this conversation. So it's, very similar.
It's really reassuring to know that a lot of people had you're not unique and a bit odd in your characteristics of childhood, and a lot of people still remember those sorts of things. And I hear cars now, and I immediately know, in the same way that if you hear a Subaru Impreza, everyone knows what that that engine sounds like. It's got such a distinctive sound. The Metros, the Micras of the day, like old Minis, you know, all of my friends, when we were all old enough to start driving, invariably all had, you know, Minis, and they sound and smell a certain way. And I remember someone saying to me when I got into Porsches that you can blindfold people who are really into their Porsches and stick them in 8 different cars and they'll always tell you which one the Porsche is because they all smell the same. They have that sort of old Porsche smell to them. It's you can't escape it. I think of that, but I love that. It kind of gets in under your skin, doesn't it? And it's part of your DNA, I think.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about the comparison between sort of the old cars and the new cars, and it's almost like kind of the warmth you've got for a grandparent versus like the starkness of a politician, and you kind of put the two next to each other. And would you rather spend kind of the afternoon at your nan's with some cake and kind of sitting around in the lounge, or in kind of just a white office with nothing there and whoever Gordon Brown? That's
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's funny, isn't it? It's I've got mates who are really into like the new stuff, and you know, I've just bought the new Tesla, or I've just got this, or I'm looking at the Taycan, and I think for what they are, my respect for modern stuff is boundless. I think it's extraordinary, but I can't imagine anyone ever sitting around the dining room table telling their grandkids that they once had a Tesla.
Yeah. The unmistakable whir of the Tesla engine.
You want to get into one of those a bit like you would a train, basically. You want to get on a train and get to where you're going, don't you? And get off. And you've got absolutely no emotional connection with that train.
Yeah.
You just sit on it. Every seat looks the same. And that's, I guess, is where that fits in, or even kind of just the modern car.
I guess it's for peace of mind. I guess if you've got old stuff, or if you're into it and you happen to have an old car or another secondary car, or if you're lucky enough to have a small collection of bits, then it probably makes absolute sense to have something in your garage that is just, I would say, turnkey, but that's not Tesla applicable, is it? Because you don't even. But that kind of, I can get it out, it's charged, I can take it out, I know it's going to deliver what it needs to deliver. It's just going to do, as a product, it's just going to do what it's designed to do. And I don't need to be passionate about it because I've got loads of other things. I've got something else that I love and adore that I'll pull a cover off on a Sunday morning and go for a drive-in. But I'm not there yet. I don't see, from my personal value, having something new just isn't the direction that I want to go in yet.
What's your connection with Mercedes-Benz? Obviously, you've got the old Merc. Was there a reason for buying that or connecting with Mercedes?
I've got an SL as well. I've got a 2002 SL, which I bought, which was always just a dream car for me. I bought the 55 AMG and then realised that I could almost watch the fuel gauge moving. I remember driving from where my wife and I used to live over near Woking to my mum, who's in Cranley in Surrey. And it's about 15 miles. So I did a round trip of and we probably went the long way. So it's probably 40 miles. And I remember getting home in the evening and looking and realising that I'd done just under a quarter of a tank of fuel.
Wow.
Christ.
That's not fun.
Yeah, and it was a really cool car. So it was a 55 AMG. I think they called it Telluride Silver. So like a silvery blue, and it had ocean blue leather. It was really cool. But just remember thinking, this is just a bit big for me at that point. So I sold it and bought a 500 with the AMG kit. And actually, it's all the car I've had it for years. I've had it 10 or 11 years now, and I absolutely love it. So that was kind of my hook into Mercedes. We lived quite close to Brooklands, so I'd always spend time up at Mercedes-Benz World at Brooklands. And I've always liked the brand. I've always been really into old Mercs. I love the kind of that sort of W126 and the Hammers and anything kind of coupe. Yeah. The old Merc coupe. I just thought always looked really, really cool. And then the old one came along. I wanted something really old. I wanted something cool and 70s. So I started looking for old 70s Mercs. Oh, God, goodness, 2015, I think. And I found a guy in Spain who was sourcing cars for customers on request, basically. And I gave him the brief for what I wanted and then looked at the 3 or 4 that he had, and they just weren't quite 70s enough. And then what I've got now, which is a 1972 250 coupe, so the W114, came along and he sent me a picture of it, and I said, yeah, I love it. And then before I knew it, I booked a flight to Spain. I got on a flight with a copy of Classic Car magazine to make sure that I knew everything about classic cars by the time I landed. And then got halfway across the sea and thinking, oh, God, I don't actually know what I'm doing here. And I've got no knowledge of how cars work or anything else. And I remember turning up at the airport in Malaga and this guy picking me up, and he was an ex-superbike rider, so he had this purple Mohican. He was mid-50s with a purple Mohican, bouncing across the car park, and I remember just thinking, please don't be Jon, please don't be Jon. And he was from Bristol, so he was, all right, mate, how you doing? Are you coming to see the car? I'm like, yeah, I have, yeah. And then I'm wobbling around some small Spanish village in this 40-something-year-old car thinking, I really like it, but I have no idea whether it's going to make the journey home, whether it's going to survive my ownership period. And it's been brilliant. I remember importing it. He imported it for me, but bringing it in and it landing and me giving it straight to the guy that looked after my SL. And I said, can you just get it ready? So, it obviously needs to be checked over, it needs to be MOT'd. And I remember leaving it with him, just saying, look, just as long as you need it for, I'm not in any rush. I don't need it. So just keep hold of it. And when it's ready, let me know. And, not open checkbook, but if it needs stuff doing and it's small things, then just crack on and get those things done. But if it looks like a considered purchase, then please let me know first. He said, well, I'll get on with it tomorrow afternoon. So I dropped it over with him in the evening. And he phoned me the following day in the afternoon and said, I don't know how to say this. I thought, oh, no. Just, your heart sinks, doesn't it? You just, because and he said, it's been through its MOT. I said, right. And he said, well, no, it's been through its MOT. He said, there's a couple of advisories. The rear tyres are looking a bit iffy. They're just dry because it's been parked for a very long time and it needs new wiper blade. And that was it. Nice. And ever since, I've had it 7 years, it's had a water pump. And that's pretty much it. I've just done a top engine rebuild because it had some issues with gaskets and various things, just old. But it's just awesome. There's something really analog about that period of cars. And I think a lot of people who now say they don't make them like they used to, that's the period that they're referring to. It's 130, I think it's 130 horsepower new. It's 2.86 cylinder. I reckon 50 of those have gone over the years. I've lost probably 1.5 horsepower a year. So it's probably 80 horsepower. It weighs just over 2 ton. And it's just the best thing. It's the absolute bee's knees. It's taken away any sense of urgency I've ever had to get anywhere quickly.
Yeah.
And I don't have road rage for anyone. Do the most ridiculous thing in front of me. And I just kind of, just there's something really civilized about driving around in an old car, and people love it. People let you out of junctions. Yeah. People come up next to you and wave at you. It's really nice. It reminds me of how the old days would have been, and it's great. I love it. Absolutely love it. I only play music from that period in it. I'm not allowed to play modern music in it. I just think it's not right.
I was going to ask that.
Has to be, so I've just got this whole kind of
cassettes.
No, it had when I bought it, it had a really awful, it wasn't Alpine or however you pronounce it, but it was something of that. Someone in the 90s in Spain had obviously pulled out the original and put something modern in.
Yeah.
So it was a front-loading CD, and it had kind of a graphic equalizer on the front. And I just remember looking at it and thinking, I don't know. And that was the first thing I changed. I went to an auto jumble, and there was a guy selling original classic brochures for pretty much anything you could think of. So I was looking at Austin Allegro brochures and all these sorts of things. And I said to my wife, I don't think they've got one. He said, what are you after, mate? I said, I've got a W114 250C. In what year? I said, 72. And he turned around and literally it took him about 15 seconds to find this brochure. So I got the original catalogue that you would have had if you were speccing one.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then set about trying to find OEM parts to spec it as close to fully loaded as I could. So it's now got as much as I could find and add to spotlights. I put a Becker Europa radio in it. And then when the guy fitted the radio, he said, do you want me to put an auxiliary pickup in the back so you can play iTunes or whatever it is through it? So I've now got the Becker Europa with a pickup in the back so I can put my phone in the glove box and play Spotify and various things. So I've just put...
Listen to podcasts.
But obviously only one podcast. There's only one podcast. But just a whole catalogue of sort of 70s music, and I don't play anything else in it. I don't think it's right. I can't put modern music on, so it's got, it's just very cool. It smells old, it sounds old, the music's old, and it's like a time capsule. So you get in it, and it's my kind of meditation, really. Weird.
You might upset the car if you play something from this era. It might start overheating or something. You think, what are you doing?
I don't think I've never risked it, if I'm honest. I just think it's not the right thing to do. So I listen to, and actually the weirdest thing is from doing that, my taste in music's widened massively. I really got into jazz and stuff, and I listened to a lot of jazz from the sort of 60s and 70s, and yeah, it's very, very cool.
What were your parents listening to, Ed, back in the day? Can you remember anything that sticks in your mind?
Yeah, probably a lot of Neil Diamond and the things like the Carpenters and ABBA, but Neil Diamond definitely, the Shadows.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit of stuff like that, and I occasionally ask my mum, what they would have been listening to at that time in their lives, and then go about searching for similar stuff.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to probably losing a parent in your teens. Your nostalgia suddenly is amplified because you want to hold on to memories. I remember I bought a watch, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I bought an 80s Seiko dive watch, but it's got the Jubilee bracelet, so the stainless steel Jubilee bracelet. And when it arrived, I remember pulling it out of the bag that it came in, and the sound of this watch strap brought a tear to my eye, because my dad used to have a Jubilee strap on his watch, and it just sounded like my dad. We're going swimming on a Saturday morning, and him putting his watch in the locker, going for a swim, coming back, and then we'd go off and have breakfast somewhere. I'd have been very little, but he'd have taken that watch out of the locker, put it back on, and that sound, picking up that watch, never expected it to garner that emotion. But I remember saying to my mum when I bought it, what aftershave would dad used to wear? And she told me it was Drakkar Noir or Chloros or whatever. So I ended up buying a bottle of one of my dad's old favourite fragrances. And now if I wear that watch, I spray that aftershave. It's funny, isn't it? The things we do to hold on to memories is very strange.
I've got exactly the same. I sort of inherited a watch from him when he passed. So I've got that. I don't ever wear it. But there's also an aftershave as well, which I've never seen. I've never seen like in sort of a regular store or anything, but there was this one time I went into a chemist in Tottenham or something.
Yeah.
Or just saw it in the window. I was like, I've never ever seen it. So I bought it. But it's running right down now. There's not much left. So
what is it called?
It's like a Dunhill one.
Yeah.
And it's like a proper splash one that you put in your hand. And honestly, I've never smelled it anywhere else, and I've never seen it anywhere else. Even when I punch it into the internet,
can't find it.
It doesn't come up with the same one. It comes up with something close. And yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's like,
it is strange. I think all the obvious ones, the Old Spices. I think everyone's dad probably had a bottle of Old Spice.
Yeah.
Brut.
Kuros.
Or there was one that my mum referenced, which was called Tabac, Tabac.
Rings a bell.
You can buy it in Superdrug for £7, and it comes in a little cardboard box. Very kind of a la Brut or Old Spice. I've got a bottle of Tabac as well, but I bought Drakkar Noir.
Do you remember High Karate?
Yeah.
Remember the advert for that?
Yeah.
Look that up. If you've never seen the High Karate advert, it's worth a look.
I don't think I've seen it.
You need to change the podcast name to My Dad's Aftershave. There's a whole new conversation here.
Could you take the stuff you've got to kind of one of those looky-likey perfume places and just get them to mix it up on scent? I know it wouldn't be the same.
Assuming you don't mind skin irritation, that'd probably be fine, wouldn't it? I remember when I was travelling in Australia, and there was like a market there in Chinatown, I think. One of the guys had bought some aftershave from one of the stalls there, and we were sort of having a drink in one of their apartments before we went out somewhere. Anyway, this bottle of, I can't remember what it was. It would have been maybe like a fake Hugo Boss or something like that. But I mean, it all looked the same. So that was kind of like being passed around in the apartment. And then someone went to put it sort of on their neck, and the guy was like, no, don't do that. And quickly sort of slapped his arm down. Like, no, wrists only.
Oh.
It was very funny. It smelled legit, but obviously probably didn't last as well.
Then you would always know that if you were on holiday in Spain or something, and you'd always get the fake aftershaves. And they, I remember things like, was it Yves Saint Laurent that did Fahrenheit, that classic the 90s fragrance? And then you could get a copy for 50 pesetas, which is like €5, but it would be called Celsius or something, and you'd know that it was in a very similar bottle, and you'd be like, oh, it smells similar, but it's not £30, so I'll have a bottle of that instead. And then you just spray it on anything apart from your skin, I think.
Yeah. Tommy Hilfiger, that sort of thing.
Yeah. It's like the middle of Lidl.
Don't knock it.
Any particular road trips from your childhood, Ed, that you recall? Kind of holidays you took, maybe, or
Devon and Cornwall. Yeah, definitely Devon and Cornwall. I think by the time I was old enough to kind of remember holidays, we were probably going abroad. At that stage, maybe a week in Spain or something. But I remember going to Devon or the Isle of Wight. My grandparents, my mum's parents lived on the Isle of Wight. So I remember going to Shanklin and going to places like Blackgang Chine. And it's actually interesting because recently my wife and I came back from Cornwall and we went to Polzeath and all different places. And we took a picture of us on the beach. And I showed my mum and she said, "Oh, that's such and such beach." She said, "Yeah, we went there with Barbara and Richard and the kids and friends that we grew up with." And she's got a photo, weirdly, pretty much in exactly the same spot on the same beach.
Oh, wow.
40 years later, I was probably 5 or 6. And yeah, it's weird, isn't it? But I remember, going places. I don't remember road trips as such because I was probably just too young. But the things that I do remember were going out if my dad was going to go and get the car washed. Going out, can I come with you? Because it was an adventure, wasn't it, when you're little, going down to the village and it's things like obviously taking the CB aerial down. And I remember spending a day with him having a sunroof fitted into his Datsun Stanza in the village we lived in.
Okay.
Cutting it in, having the guy saying, "Do you want a slide and tilt, or do you just want to tilt?" And they could do anything in those days. Cutting open the roof and fitting this tinted tilt sunroof into his Datsun Stanza. It's funny, isn't it? How you remember things.
Yeah. Did your mum drive at all, Ed?
Yeah. So my mum's first car was an old Mini. Then she had a Clubman, the little estate with the little woody panels down the side.
Yeah.
Then she had a Nissan Micra. Then a Suzuki Vitara.
Yeah.
And then my brother and I bought her, I think for her 60th, the new shape Suzuki Vitara because her old Vitara was a bit decrepit. And now she's got a baby blue Citroen. I think it's a C2.
Okay, like a roller skate, little thing.
Yeah. It's a really cool colour, actually. It's like a pale blue. It's like slightly lighter than Miami blue, but it's a great colour. But my mum told me that there was a problem with her car a few years back. And the mechanic had said it needs to be driven a bit harder because you're not driving it fast enough. So she asked me if I could take it down the A281 or something and give it a run. And I remember looking at the mileage and thinking, how are you doing 2,700 miles a year? It was like the car was 2.5 years old and it had done less than 6,000 miles. She runs a shop. She's got her own shop in the village where I grew up. Then she literally drives from home to the shop, to the car park, and then home. And then occasionally she'll do a B&Q or a garden centre run, but that's few and far between. So
yeah,
she loves it. It's a modern car for her, and she absolutely adores it. But she's never been a massive petrol head. My dad was, although he kept his cars for a very, very long time. And my brother likes cars, but is not really a petrol head. I've got friends who claim to be petrol heads, but don't understand the concept of just getting in your car and just going for a drive without anywhere to particularly go, just because you want to go and have a drive. And where you end up is where you end up, and you get a coffee. I'm going out tomorrow morning to see a friend, and I'm just going down to not even really going to see him for anything other than just we both want to have a drive.
Yeah.
But I seem to be the only one of my mates that does that, and I don't know if that makes me a bit strange as well, but I find being out in the car really relaxing.
Yeah, no, I can get that.
I suppose it depends what you're driving, doesn't it, as well, really? If you've got something...
It took me, I reckon, 9 months to get back to being comfortable driving a manual, because when I bought the 911, it's a manual, but my SL's automatic and my old-timer's automatic. So I had 10 years of driving an automatic car. And then the old one's automatic. So and my wife's car's automatic. So getting back into a manual, I really wanted a 3-pedal car. It's funny how you unlearn things.
Did your dad teach you to drive?
Yeah. But he was really impatient. So it was a fractured experience, if I remember correctly.
In the Stanza?
No, I think...
Not in Reggie.
Yeah, no, not in Reggie. Probably, yeah, actually, maybe in Stanley, but I think probably more likely my first car, which was a Volkswagen Polo, A974 KJT, in case you were wondering.
Yeah.
And I think I probably learned, I was having lessons, and then I think he was kind of polishing up the rough edges at weekends as and when his patience would facilitate it. But of course, when you're 17 and you've got your own car, all you want to do is just pass and go out and drive as fast as you can and stupidly as you can, as often as you can. So
Yeah.
At 17, you obviously know everything. And there's nothing that your parents can teach you that you don't already know. So, yeah, I had lessons. And then I subsequently rolled that car about a mile from home a year after I had it.
Whoops.
So, yes. Character building.
How do they hold up in a roll, the old Volkswagen Polo?
Polo becomes a Rolo.
Not good. Yeah, it was a Volkswagen Rolo. Not great, if I'm honest. I was fine, but very bruised ego as a result, because my girlfriend at the time was following me, and we definitely weren't racing, but we were having a spirited drive home.
Is that a Mark II, an A-plate Polo?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same as my first car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the hatchback. It's like a little estate.
Squareback. Yeah.
Yeah, squareback. Yeah, it was really cool, actually. I think it was a 1.1 or a 1.3. I don't remember the model, but I remember the number plate.
Yeah, we've both had a few of those, haven't we, John? Well, you've had one, and I've had 5, I think.
B57 KPN, I think mine was.
Yeah, a bit newer than mine then. What colour?
It was sort of a dark burgundy, maroon, reddy sort of thing, wasn't it, Andy?
Yeah. Gambia Red, I believe it's called.
Yeah, nice.
Most of the panels matched in terms of paint colour.
Mine was bright red with a dark interior. It was really cool, actually. And you don't see them now.
No.
And certainly, I haven't seen one for a very, very long time.
I really like that car. I'd have one of those again.
Yeah, they're very, very cool.
Nice little manual choke. And
I love that now the kids that are now 18, 19 and getting into their first cars are now pulling back to that era. So there's a couple of sort of cars and coffee type places around there where I live, and these youngsters turn up in Mark 1 Golf, or a Metro or something, and you think, actually, you've chosen that. You've not inherited that from your granddad. You've gone out and found that, because they're quite hard to find, these old stuff. There's one young lad, probably 18, who's got a Mark 1 Fiesta, and it's totally stock. It's a special edition. I can't think what it's called, probably a tropical or something, but it's like a mauvey violet, and it's got sort of flowery seats. You've not been given that by a grandparent and you've taken it reluctantly, like the yellow Fiat in the In-Betweeners type thing. You've gone out and found that and picked it, and it's totally standard. You've not put pepper pot wheels on it or tried to lower it or do anything. You've left it completely bog standard. And I think there's something really cool about kids driving cars that are older than them. If you're driving a car that's older than you know what's going on.
you're certainly going to stand out, aren't you?
Yeah.
Among sort of all the other Fiat 500s and Ford KAs, whatever's out there now. Yeah, I don't know what they're driving these days, but
Yeah, for sure. There's something very cool about driving a car that's older than you.
Definitely. Cool. Thank you very much, Ed. I think that's a nice place to stop and wrap it up.
yeah, it's really good. Thanks, Ed.
No, pleasure. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. I feel slightly better about not having these sort of weird memories of childhood and aftershaves and cars and air fresheners. There seems to be some other people that have similar memories, so it's been really enjoyable. I love talking to you both.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers, Ed. Nice to meet you.
Bye. Bye.
Cool. There you go.
Nice.
Bit of Merc action for you.
Yeah.
His Merc action, not his parents, but
Yeah. No, there's lots of stuff. I mean, he's a bit older than myself, but I guess he's kind of the same age as my brother Matt. So
yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that you relate to. Because obviously same eras, isn't it? Same things going on. So
yeah.
it's a good little walk down memory lane, that one. Enjoyed it.
I like the fact that he only listens to kind of music of the period in the older car. I
Yeah.
did the same. I had a 1976 Polo, and it had the original radio in it, so you could only get long wave. So yeah, it was Capital Gold or whatever, and
Nice.
Dire Straits, Rolling Stones, Beatles on repeat.
Yeah. No, I do think you kind of get into character, don't you, when you get in those old cars?
Yeah, all adds to that. And we mentioned it in the episode, the association with being able to know kind of what the sound of the door is, what the engine note is, and all of those sort of things.
Yeah. It's quite nice, isn't it? I think you said before about, I've seen you post, I think, on our accounts with regards to if you're taking a journey out with your kids this weekend, you could be creating not necessarily their first car memory, but a car memory of sorts.
Yeah.
And it was nice, wasn't it, Ed, talking about his dad when he was out of work for that period.
Yeah.
Like, it was obviously a tough time for him, looking for a new career, but he was still taking Ed out and doing a bit of gardening, that sort of thing. And it was a nice time for Ed. So, yeah, it's quite nice to hear that.
Yeah, maybe that's that. Yeah, we never know. That might be something that his dad never knew, potentially.
Probably.
That actually, yeah, if your folks are still about, then it is nice to kind of just feed that back to them and go, yeah, that might have been a tough time for you. But
yeah,
potentially if they might look back on that differently, if they know that moment or that time was kind of pivotal or sort of shaped sort of a future interest for you, then actually that kind of period of hardship wasn't in vain, because whilst they were earning a small wage to kind of keep the food on the table, they were also helping shape your interest for the future. So
yeah.
And the memory of the watch was quite nice as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Not at all car related, but I've inherited a couple of watches from my dad as well. Again, I don't wear them, but yeah, just those noises with them.
Yeah.
And yeah, you kind of remember them having a watch. It may or may not be that exact watch, but yeah, remember them having that thing, and it had that certain sound, that weight to it. And
yeah, it's nice. Hopefully, I think Ed probably enjoyed it as much as we did. Just sort of, you might not necessarily think that you've still got those memories in there at times, but they do come out, don't they? When you start sort of one memory can trigger another. It's quite nice in that way.
Yeah, I think so. Sort of, it's like a cathartic type process, isn't it? Just to sort of let it flow. And I'm sure, people who are listening to these episodes are kind of thinking a similar thing. Yeah, there will be a sort of a trigger with that.
Yeah,
that it might not be car related. It might be going swimming on a Sunday morning with your dad or whatever it might be. And just thinking back to that, and the swimming things. Like for me, it was you go swimming and then you always have to go and use the vending machine, wouldn't you? Just so you get you type the number in, and you may or may not get the bag of crisps, and you have to give it a rock to get them out, or you might get 2 Milky Ways.
Yeah, double knickknacks was always good in one office that I used to work in.
So all of those come together, and another shout out for the My Dad's Car mug that you've been sipping from on the episode there.
Yeah, there it is. For the benefit of the tape, I'll just give it a little clink. So. Hear that.
What's it like for collecting pound coins if certain French saloon cars?
Well, I've got one.
I mentioned.
I've got a jar there. It could be used, as a pound coin collector or a hot or cold drink vessel, should we say?
Yeah, small plant pot.
Yeah, indeed. But no, it's a nice cup. I didn't get burnt when I was drinking my coffee. It worked in the microwave fine. It's been through the dishwasher. Yeah. It's held up well. So I'd recommend it for anyone that wants to buy us a coffee and have something to put the coffee in.
Yeah, that helps, doesn't it? So, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much for Ed coming on. Don't think we've got anyone else to thank for supporting at the moment, but
no.
If you have been supporting us, thank you very much. If you've been sharing our episodes, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll have a new website out soon. That's kind of something just going on in the background, isn't it?
Yeah, so that should, hopefully by the time this goes out, be kind of a bit more put together with some nostalgic blog posts, that sort of thing, and just general links to all the recordings.
Indeed. So thank you very much, John.
Pleasure.
We'll wrap it up. Roll the credits. Thanks for listening to My Dad's Car Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please click subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on social media. If you'd like to support us further, you can buy us a coffee or sign up to give us a monthly bump start. You'll find details on our website, mydadscar.co.uk. Bye for now.